So, James, what was so interesting was then how the media reported all this. You would think it would be pretty clear-cut what's happened, but no.
Well, the National Guard were in Washington, D.C. at the behest of Donald Trump to crack down on crime, and MSNBC seemed to suggest that people in general, not just this Afghani immigrant, were just annoyed by the presence of the National Guard.
So much controversy happening in the United States right now with ICE, who are also wearing uniforms and wearing masks, and so there's you don't know people walking around with uniforms in an American city. There are some Americans that might object to that, and so apparently this shooting has happened.
It was just an American objecting to the presence of the National Guard, so he shot a few. But the Australian's ABC correspondent, John Lyons, was even worse. He seemed to insinuate that the fact this was an Afghani immigrant was quite irrelevant. Literally any American in Washington, D.C. could have committed this crime.
And this also highlights an ongoing issue in the United States, the number of guns here. There are more guns in the United States than there are people. And so the reality is that even if you're walking around a part of the city like this in the centre of Washington, D.C., 2 blocks from the White House, which you would think would be safe, often you don't know whether the person you're walking by has a hidden gun and whether or not that's legal. So it highlights the constant problem of the United States, the gun culture, which is deeply entrenched in this country.
It literally could have been anybody who pulled out a gun and did that. Nothing at all to do with migration or Afghanistan or the failure to properly vet immigrants. It was just, guns.
What sort of mind virus do you need to have to that's your takeaway? Seriously, it is extraordinary. I think his work there was probably just as good as when he put together that Four Corners episode about Trump's business dealings and went and harassed Trump on the White House lawns before he got on the chopper, because that's the number one thing going on with the Trump administration at the moment. I mean, there was nearly 200,000 people came from Afghanistan into the United States across 2 separate projects to move these people, and how do you, in one fell swoop, properly assess all of those people? I just don't know how it's possible. I think in the last tranche there were 90,000 came through. I mean, that is a lot of people to assess. Look, I don't know what their systems are like in the US, but here in Australia, it takes us years to assess whether or not people can stay in this country as refugees. And you've got 90,000 of them come through in one shot, and we are to expect that there is no issue there. So I think Trump's done the right thing here. He said, look, there might be a problem. We should be assessing all of this and seeing who we've actually got in our country. Because if you're the kind of person who rocks up and point blank shoots members of the National Guard, there has to be a motivation for it. And I know that the authorities are obviously still looking into that, and we will get more detail when they know exactly what's happened. But clearly there has to be a motivation for it.